Good morning, everybody. This is the July 11th, 2023 meeting of the Dunn County Planning, Resource and Development Committee. All members of the committee are present. So I'll start with approval of minutes from January or June 27th. Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Morehouse, a second. Supervisor Bjork. Any discussion or corrections? Okay, all in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Minutes are approved. We do have public comment, I think. Right? So. Louisa, is that you?
Yeah, where do you want?
Up at the mic.
You're welcome, please.
Good morning. My name is Louisa Gerasimo, and I'm giving public comment because I know that this very important body will be looking at issues related to zoning that will impact the ability of families in our community to have a home. And home is a very important concept. Most of us have a home, and it impacts the health and safety and well-being of families. And that is my job. I work for the University of Wisconsin-Madison Division of Extension for Dunn County. And my particular area is family engagement and relationships. And as a family engagement and relationships person, I talk to a lot of families. And one of the things that comes up regularly in conversations is the difficulty of finding a home in Dunn County. And this impacts some of our largest employers. And I have heard from several that they have trouble attracting talent to our county because people are offered the job and then can't find a place to live. So this impacts every level of housing, from executive level housing down to people who are trying to buy a starter home. And lots of people my age, I'm the tail end of the baby boom. So my friends who are a little older are trying to downsize and find a place that's one level that they can clean easily, that's easy to heat, that's safe. And we just have a shortage. And you'll hear more about that when we release our housing study. But I wanted to just read you this comment. And I would ask all of you as human beings to think about all the people that you know in your lives that will need a place to stay when they're adults, or when they're older, or when they're starting families, or when they want to move here for a job. Quality rental homes are incredibly scarce and breathtakingly expensive, yet wages are stuck in place. In recent years, tight standards for mortgage loans and high home prices have made it impossible for many people to buy homes, causing more people to become renters. Large number of renters and a scarce supply of rental housing have driven up rents. Rent has increased, but wages for low and middle income households have not, forcing more families to spend large portions of their income on housing and leaving less money for other important needs like nutritious food, good health care, and quality childcare. Childcare is another area that we have serious problems with in Dunn County. Just don't have enough. To make sure people can get decent housing at reasonable costs, we need to take steps to fix these problems within the housing market. And it is in your control to oversee zoning changes that might make it possible for more people to enjoy living here in our county. And I would like to know that you're thinking about that deeply over the coming months. And that is the end of my public comment. Thank you. Should I turn this off?
Thank you, Louisa. Any other public comment?
Mr. Chairman, may I? Louisa Gerasimo is the chair of the Health Done Right Housing Action Team, just for your information.
Anyone else? Okay. We have no public hearing today, so we'll move on to item 6A, A, B, and C, staff reports. Starting with Richard Deeds.
Good morning. Don't have anything to add, I guess.
Any questions of Heather? Comments?
I have
Yeah.
one. Sorry, I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but I think I'm probably okay, actually. I remember reading that you had gone to a workshop and that one of the topics that you discussed was discriminatory racial covenants on titles. I read an article a week ago about a community in Minnesota, right? Is this going to be the same thing? You know what I'm talking about, maybe? So just for background for the rest of the committee, yeah, I guess it was standard practice maybe 100 years ago to have these discriminatory covenants that will say that only people of a certain race can buy a property. And since the covenants stay with the titles and not with the owners, they're still there today. And so I was wondering if maybe you could talk a little bit about what that situation is like in Wisconsin, since what I read about was Minnesota.
Sure. So yes, there are those types of covenants in our records, and we did do, well, we actually had an intern from CVTC that worked with us, and that was kind of one of the things that we, just curiosity, had her go through some of our older records to determine if we had or how many we had. And we do have those types of covenants. You know, they could be, like you said, definitely racial discrimination, religion, you know, those types of covenants, and they still remain in our records. Of course, they've been, you know, deemed illegal, unenforceable many years ago, you know, by the Housing Act, the Fair Housing Act, and but they do still remain in our records. The Realtors Association has proposed legislation. I guess I'm not sure how far along this is, but that would allow like current landowners, if they wanted to record a certificate, well, there's nothing preventing you from doing that now, but it would just kind of create some standards where you can record a certificate that basically says that you release these covenants or discharge these covenants. So that's something that's in the works, but those covenants do remain in the records. You know, I do feel that the title people that are doing the research, those covenants probably don't, because they've been outlawed or, you know, they're invalid. They don't really appear, I don't believe, in title reports and such. But again, they do remain in the records. They aren't, we've never, you know, we don't eliminate or redact or anything like that. They are in the records. So.
Is there any role that the county would play, or like if somebody wanted to get this changed, who has the authority to do that?
Yeah, it would be a statutory change. We don't have any authority to, you know, remove language from documents. We don't have that authority to do that. So it would take legislation to change that.
Okay.
And I guess that's what the Realtors Association was maybe working towards, something that they could do that would, you know, allow a landowner to record that certificate that says we disagree, you know, we do not, you know, agree with these types of covenants on the real estate that we own, and we want to record a release that, you know, declares that. So that would be, as far as that legislation that I've reviewed, that's as far as that goes. It still doesn't remove that from the records.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Morris.
Is that something that you think we ought to consider in our legislative agenda?
Yeah.
Sure,
Just thought I would bring it
Mhm.
up.
I think that's a really good point.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Mr. Carlson.
Good morning, everyone. My report's in front of you. It was in your packet. I don't have anything to add unless there's any specific questions. Business as usual, very
Okay.
busy, a lot of
Yeah.
land divisions coming in. So that time of the year.
Any questions, Mr. Carlson? Okay, thank you, Tom. Planning and zoning, Ann.
Good morning, everyone. Well, first of all, I just wanted to introduce Tammy from our staff. She's our planner / code enforcement officer joining us today, because we do have the comprehensive plan on the agenda, and that's something that she's been working on. Other than that, I don't have anything to add unless there's any questions.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yes.
Talk a little bit about the demand for accessory dwelling units and when you think we might be taking that up.
Sure. So I just wanted to mention that in there just because it has been kind of an overwhelming thing that we're getting calls for. If people aren't familiar with accessory dwelling units, it's essentially, a second living quarters on your home. So it could be an apartment above a garage, it could be a tiny house on the property, things like that. Right now in our ordinance, it's really difficult to get a second dwelling. Certain exceptions, if you're in a farming family, you can have extra dwellings on the property. But otherwise, if you're in a residential district, this isn't really something that we have as a possibility. Some of the other counties around here have introduced ADUs or accessory dwelling units to their ordinance with standards for when they can be built. But, I'd like to know at some point, how the PR&D committee feels about this and if this is something they would envision for Dunn County, maybe as a possible solution for some of this housing shortage and transitional housing for people.
So I remember, I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead, Mike. Oh, you go ahead.
I think I lost track of what I was gonna ask now.
Oh, well, you'll come back to you. I was just gonna say that we did look at accessory dwellings probably 3 years ago. I don't know, could have been longer, but pretty seriously. And we looked at some model ordinances, and I'm sure the committees would be more than happy to get back to that as soon as possible. It's important. So thank you for bringing it up. Got it, Mike?
Yes, I do. It only took a little while. Yeah, I'd like to look at it again too. That's one thing. And Diane, in the report that's coming out, is that addressed as one of the solutions?
Yes.
Okay. And do they have
One of 47.
yeah.
Sorry about that.
Well, it's a good number. But is it are there specifics that it's recommended or just ADUs?
No, it's been
I can't
Sorry.
remember either.
it's been a long time since I've read
Okay.
read it in detail, so ask me tomorrow.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so but yeah, it's a good idea to look at it.
Okay,
Right, thank you.
Just
land
one
and water
question,
conservation, Chase.
Mr. Chair.
Oh,
A
here, I'm
grant?
sorry.
So what was the reason of having only one residence per parcel? There must have been a reason at one time why that was enacted.
I guess, so this would have probably been added in 2013 or earlier. I don't know how far back it goes. That'd be something I could definitely research and find out if I can find some reasoning there. Maybe some officials that have been involved in county government longer than me might have an answer for that as well. Yeah.
Okay, Chase.
Well, there's several things that are grabbing our attention in Land and Water Conservation Division. Of most is, I'll just touch on the private well monitoring program. We're nearing the end of that. We're in the kind of the cleanup phase, capturing all any follow-up well samples that were either missed, homeowners weren't home, or some other situation. So we're going to hit our mark. And everyone in our department or our division was involved in collecting samples at some point. Each one of us did at least 2 days each collecting samples, whereas Hunter, our intern, and Heather Wood in our office did the bulk of them. We also had public health intern Derek Baumgartner helped out. I believe he's in the back of the room today. He stepped in and did a ride along with a couple of us, and he was a pinch hit for me on a half a day. Actually, was due to childcare issues, but he helped out a lot and has been a good asset, I think, for this program. So we're starting to get some communication with the lab on some of the results starting to be processed. So hopefully we'll be nearing another nick point in this whole process to get some reports out and communicate with the participants I just want to call out that Chippewa County has been also a partner with the Wisconsin Environment Analysis Lab with Stevens Point, the same lab that we're going through. They had a nice presentation a couple of weeks ago on their groundwater monitoring program. And we certainly are in communication and consultation with Kevin Masaryk with UWSP, who is also a big player in Chippewa County's report. If you get a chance to look that up, there's some good information there and might help feed some next steps for us to consider as we evaluate our data and what we do after that. So with that, I'll leave it there. If there's other questions in my report, I'd be happy to answer them.
Go ahead.
Sure.
It's probably too soon for you to know this, but has the ARPA money, does it appear to be sufficient to cover your costs, given the intensity of the staff work? on
Yeah,
this?
so there is a lot of lab invoicing that has yet to occur. That's going to probably come in one big bulk near the end of the season here. Based on budgeting, we may have the potential for some additional follow-up samples, depending on where results come in. I don't want to speak too soon on that just to see where we end up, but I know that is in our consideration that if we have some areas of concern that we may want to do follow-up testing on, we may have some room to consider that. So, but as far as staff time, I've been questioned on that a lot as to how much staff time we put in this. And I think in my experience in other monitoring programs and also acknowledging other counties' programs, and when they attempt to do just voluntary bring your own sample in, our success rate has been much higher. And I think that speaks to our willingness to go out and collect a sample, engage with the landowner. It's free. I think that goes a long way. I also think it's been a good experience for our staff to see the diversity and on all levels, from a geology landscape to a human dimension of Dunn County. So it's been a good experience, and I think everyone has found some value once they sit down and think about it a little bit. So even though it's been kind of stressful at times.
Thanks for that, Chase.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you elaborate more on that transit survey? Do you have any more results of what are you finding more no-till, more cover crops, or haven't had time to look at it that close yet?
Yeah, so it's a good question. It's a program that we've been doing since, what did I write in the report? A long time. I think it's the early 90s. We've been doing this. We have predetermined GPS points across the county. We visit those every year. We assess the tillage, the cropping scenario, look for potential resource concerns. And right now it's a little too early to tell what this year's results will say. I think we're in the same kind of trend. We are in general meeting tolerable soil loss as a county. We are seeing some increase in no-till in certain areas. The one big thing that's obviously a hot topic in the ag community is cover crops. And that's harder for us to capture that in a spring survey. Typically, we're not getting out there till the first part of June. So any cover crop that would have been planted in the fall has already been terminated typically. So we're not able to capture that component. But I will say we are taking a stronger interest in what we do with that data and how we can present that in public meetings and other field events. So we can look at trend analysis. We're going to be breaking it down by sub watershed, so we can look at sub watersheds and look at trends within those, particularly related to where we can overlap with some of the farmer-led watershed councils and how those trends might be compatible or comparable to where we're seeing that activity. So I think there's more to come on that, and I'd be happy to, once we get that data, to give a presentation here on it. So.
How many sites are there?
So I think there's 560 some points.
Oh, wow.
And then there's one stop, and then there's a point on either side that we take. So it's well over 1,000. Yep.
Any other questions? All right, thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thanks to all the staff for their great work and good reports, as always. I guess the next item is the review of Chapter 13 zoning ordinance amendment draft. And you want to lead us through this?
So I just wanted to make sure that this was on the agenda for today, as this is, I think, our original plan was to get this to the County Board of Supervisors soon. Due to notification requirements, we needed to do a class 2 notification and things like that. So this was not able to get for this meeting. So it will be on the July 25th meeting for you to make your decision to send this to the County Board of Supervisors. So that will need to be a public hearing. And I just wanted to give an update on that. And then I did share this information guide with town officials. I sent it to all the clerks and town chairs that I had emails for in Dunn County. So including those who were not under county zoning, just so that they're aware of the changes that are happening. I believe I also sent this to all of the village clerks and the city of Menominee as well. It was posted on our website in a few different places, and people were encouraged to share this. So I just thought that this was a nice little explanation of what the PRND was proposing and why, and what those specific changes were, and how that also aligns with the comprehensive plan.
Thought it was a really helpful document and well done, both of you. Appreciate it. Any questions about you? You want to talk about any specific? Yeah. Any questions anybody has about it?
Just a comment.
Yeah.
To echo what you said, but as I looked through it and I thought of all the times we sat here and talked, you condensed what we said down into this in a very logical, professional way. I mean, had I walked in here and just read it the first time, I would have said, oh, yeah. So
I was listening.
but you took this much and you put it down here and you condensed it, and it's wow. I could say, where'd you learn to write? In the good sense of the way, in the good sense of the word.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I was really impressed, just the way it was put together and how summarized what we've been asking for.
Yeah, I'm, one of the things that you had commented regarding the 2017 changes, that you felt like this had happened and you didn't know about it as in the town and on a planning commission and part of PRND, and you weren't quite aware of what the repercussions of it might be. And I felt like a document like this puts it in more plain language and explains it a little better. So.
Well said, Mike, and well done. Okay, you want to move on to do you want to review the actual document? Okay, yep.
So I've included it in this packet. So this is the document that Nick drafted with the changes. I don't know if you want me to kind of just read a little bit, but
Yeah, just not
Sure.
that long. You can sort of share your thoughts with us, or what?
yeah, so the first change is to section 1. That would be removing the non-owner occupied single family and or multifamily dwellings shall be included in the 3,000 square foot restriction. We're removing this essentially because those will no longer, it's just no longer necessary to have that language in there with the other proposed changes. In section 2, we're going to remove that too. Here, I'm just going to find my notes. So we're repealing non-owner occupied dwelling, including single and multifamily dwellings. So essentially this means we're taking single family homes and multifamily homes that are non-owner occupied and just completely removing that from the section for permitted principal structures. Moving on to the next one. This is in regards to permitted accessory uses. We're taking out single and multifamily dwellings and rewriting it to be a single family residence only as an accessory to a principal use. We wanted to make it very clear that this was an accessory and not just, 2 buildings on the same property. And then number 4, we're taking out the language that says single and multifamily dwelling adjacent to the principal use, and rewriting that to read as a single family residence located on the same parcel as the principal use, provided that the use of the residence is accessory use rather than primary use. Again, just making it clear that the use is accessory to the principal use as a commercial structure. And that's, well, pretty much wraps it up there.
Question, please.
Yeah, Gary.
On section 3, if you got a commercial property, can the house be built on after it's commercial, or is it that the house is there first and then it becomes part of commercial? Which is the proper way, or
So,
it was commercial first?
yeah,
Hey, I want to put a house here. Can they do it there, or as accessory, it's gotta be or is there a first and then commercial came later?
so if it's a new property, so it's just, there's no structures on the property, the principal structure would have to be built first. And that would need to be a commercial use. If we do this change, you will no longer have residential dwellings as the first structure on the property. Once that commercial business is built, then they could build a home, but it would need to be, you know, smaller and the less primary use. If that makes sense.
Board of Adjustment then, or it's legal to do it?
Yep, it's a permitted use, so it would
Okay.
just require a zoning permit for the use.
Okay, thank you.
So the overall theme of this is that we need more, as to follow up on Louisa's comments and the Housing Action Team's concerns, that we need, this community recognizes that we need more housing. The way to provide that in these areas is not by shoehorning it into commercial, but to work with the towns to get them to identify commercially zoned areas that are appropriate for multi-family housing. Is that kind of how you guys see it as planners?
Tammy, would you like to comment on that?
Sure.
When we were talking, in the context of the comprehensive plan, especially, which is one of the, I think you mentioned you wanted to talk about that, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, we have that as a discussion point too, if we want to talk about it then, but
I don't see it on the agenda. Did I
is
miss
it not on there? I must be thinking about the next meeting.
So let's talk about it now, okay?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, so to clarify, you're bringing up multifamily in commercial districts.
No, I'm
Okay.
saying that we clarified that that's not where we want to go. But since the committee recognizes that we do need more housing, that the way to deal with that is to encourage local units of government to establish zoning districts that provide for that specifically.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
yeah.
that should be part of our discussion in the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where we look at the town's comp plans that they've adopted, revisions to them. And then a missing element that we haven't seen before is the sewer districts. You know, so really it's looking at the sewer districts within these communities that are that overlay. Because then that helps us cite, proper housing, right? To have a multifamily on a rural sanitary system could be very challenging versus if we're within a sewer district area, that's where we want to locate them. So I'd envision that's where we would start planning those future growth areas.
Okay.
Again, road networks, where it makes sense, but not in those commercial areas.
Yeah.
Maybe we will identify some of them to be converted or multi-use areas. But that will potentially be another overlay district or a sub-district for us in the future.
Okay. Anything else you want to bring up?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think kind of what you were kind of leading to was that one of the main reasons for making this change that I understand the PRND wanted was that this would kind of make it so that commercial districts wouldn't be used as a way to like go around a town's comprehensive plan or the county's comprehensive plan.
Okay. Everybody satisfied? Anything else you guys want to add? Just briefly then, what is, since we sort of have the comprehensive plan brought up a little bit, what is your plan for that.
I'm putting this one on Tammy again.
And it was mentioned in your report too, so, yeah.
I think next committee meeting would be kind of a rollout of our plan
Okay.
for the conference, bring some background information to where we're at, some history. And then some recommendations to the committee to hopefully give us more additional direction on what route we should go. We
Okay.
definitely have some timelines working against us, but we also have an interesting element with the comp plan that has the farmland preservation that was added. So when that was done, that actually built in a little buffer and time frame for us to
Oh,
work
really?
with.
Okay.
So I feel like there's not as much of an urgency from a timeline standpoint. I think more of our urgency is going to be consistency, right? To make sure we are staying consistent with the other comprehensive plans that have been done and really kind of come up with a better public participation plan to gather that input. Accessory dwelling units being one of them, if we want to include that element. And then, put that big time frame together. So if the committee is all right, at next committee meeting, we'd like to roll out that information.
May I,
Dan,
Mr. Chairman?
yep.
May I just say yay? We've been talking about this since 20.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, that's good. Yay,
19.
yay twice. Thank you. All right. Well, yeah, these meetings are way too short for all our. Let's see, I think you're up, Chase, with 9A.
Want me to drag it out a little longer?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's go into the long history of this.
Yeah. So on the agenda is a budget adjustment request for the Snowmobile Trail Aid Program. So this is something that doesn't occur every year. You're certainly familiar with the Snowmobile Trail Program. It's a money in, money out type of situation. Grant funds from the Snowmobile Trail Aid Program through the state funnel through our office, and they get distributed to the Dunn County Snowmobile Association to maintain the trails, both grooming and other physical maintenance. Due to the winter of this past winter, grooming hours typically were more. We had a little bit more snow. Other parts of the state obviously saw more snow and more storm damage. So there is the opportunity to apply for supplemental funding to help offset some of those costs. And we in Dunn County are eligible for that for this grant cycle. So this is a budget adjustment request to accommodate that potential application and funds coming in. We have to kind of get this set up before the final application is submitted. We're anticipating around $55,000 to come back to Dunn County, to the Dunn County Snowmobile Association for the supplemental funds. So again, there's no impact to the levy on this. This is grant funds coming in from the state and passing back through to the Snowmobile Association. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. This will go to executive committee tomorrow and then county board.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, can you collect some kind of like a work fee for processing the forms and that? A little of your time?
We do that. Yep. We do submit our, mainly it's Janelle's time in our office. She does a lot of the processing through the state's system. So we do recoup some of those costs, but that's limited. Certainly we're putting more time in, especially if you start thinking about the bridge bidding and all that. If you saw in my report, there's 2 bids going out for 2 bridges right now. So there's that staff time that we don't necessarily recuperate completely, but we're doing as much as we probably can through what's allowed.
Okay. I'm trying to think about Gary, do you want to you raise the important question of talking about the land division ordinance
Yeah.
and asking Mr. Carlson to talk about that. I wonder if I mean, we could do that after the meeting, or if one suggestion would be to reopen your report, Tom, and do that now. And that's what I would suggest. Okay.
if I could interrupt, I think I need a vote on the budget adjustment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Yeah,
I don't want to let you out of here without. that.
no, I apologize for that. Yeah, let's go back to before I put my foot into something else, go back to 9A and ask for a motion to approve. Diane's on top of it. Gary, seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll reopen Mr. Carlson's report.
Okay, thank you. I'm a little bit caught off guard, just being honest, going from memory here. And I believe your comment, Supervisor Bjork, was just a real high level review of the changes. Yeah, so let me start out by saying we've already had a first reading at County Board that happened in June. The second reading will take place on the 26th of July. And then those provided they pass, the amendments will become official upon publication. So roughly a week later, early August. I guess the most notable change is trying to think here. We've had a lot of discussions. We've added some new definitions. We've removed some definitions. Probably the biggest change in my mind is no longer the need for the 30,000 square feet of contiguous buildable area. While we are removing that requirement, I still feel like we're honoring its intention. So right now, with the changes, if somebody is developing property that has any environmentally sensitive areas on that site, the applicant is going to have to prove to the satisfaction of the department that they can fit all the required building components, the well, the septic, meet all the setbacks on there, to our satisfaction. And some sites may be challenging. We also, in the amended ordinance, have the right to ask for soil borings as part of that review if we think that it's not going to be able to work on the site. So while we're removing that requirement, we're just simply managing it in a different fashion, and it's staying in-house, so to speak, with staff. I anticipate a lot less variance requests coming before the committee for those types of situations. So thank you for placing your trust in the staff to manage that. I think it's going to be more efficient, not only for staff, the committee, but also the land surveyors and the general public. Our wetland definition right now, we lump in not only mapped wetlands that everybody's, traditional mapped wetlands, but also areas with hydric soils. That classifies as a wetland. That's how we define them. And it's very confusing for the general public, for the surveyors and engineers that are working. So we've changed that definition. The easement section, basically our public roads and access easement section, has a lot of changes in there. More definition on or distinction between what is an access easement, a public road, and a private road. The lands with high agricultural value, we changed that definition, working with Nick and Chase. Trying to remember what we changed it to. Lands or before it was high value ag lands, I think, and now it's lands with high agricultural value. And we've placed some definitions in there. So it's not so, I guess it takes it off Chase's plate as far as making a determination. And again, I don't have the document in front of me. I'm not very well prepared this morning, so bear with me. What else? The variances, we better define, or not define, but how long is a variance good for? Does it extend to so basically a variance, we piggybacked onto the chapter 13 zoning ordinance, has some very good language in there. So we piggybacked on top of that. Basically a variance once granted attaches to the property as a permanent right and is applicable to the current owner and all subsequent owners. We addressed the procedure for a variance as far as needing a majority of the committee. We changed some language in there to make that a little more clear. Lot standards. We put some language in there recognizing these existing non-conforming parcels that may not meet a minimum lot size, how we deal with those, to make it more in line with our zoning ordinance. Gosh, I know there's more. Yeah, so right now, the current ordinance talks about roads designed as permanent dead ends shall terminate in a cul-de-sac with a certain, I think it was a 75-foot diameter radius turnaround. Working or hearing input from the towns, we've put other language in or alternate language in there that allows for different style of turnaround hammerheads, things like that. And give more control, I guess, to the local responders and the town officials on what they feel would be the best type of turnaround, not limiting them to a cul-de-sac. I still anticipate, cul-de-sacs will be used, but it does provide for another option.
But I thought there's spots in there where that 75-foot setback was taken out. Did I read that right or not?
So I believe you're referring to the 75-foot building setback. Yes, that's an important point. Right now, our current ordinance has a 75-foot building setback requirement from all wetlands, which contradicts our own zoning ordinance. And we're talking about land use, right? Restricting development or building use within a physical feature. So we've removed that. So the zoning ordinance right now will let you build right up to a wetland. Why would we limit that or restrict it in a land division ordinance? So that's a very good point. Yes, that's been removed.
Mr. Chairman, I think it'd be a really good idea at the next county board meeting to have Tom give a little bit of update on, because somebody that's not on this committee that reads over it, well, what is really changing? What is the difference?
Yeah, I agree, Gary. Why don't we, if you're available, Tom, we've talked about. you
I am
coming
planning
and
to
doing
be
this,
there.
And we'll ask for that, and that would be helpful.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Any announcements? I just, maybe in light of our conversations, we're making a note that Neil Cook reached out and asked if we could agenda a presentation by him at our next meeting and a discussion, about some concerns about, the impact of, some of the potential impacts on city wells of developments in the area. And so, you remember the geologist who came and spoke to us
Yes.
informally one
Okay,
time?
yeah.
Okay. So, so that will be on our next, I'd like to put it on the next agenda and have him spend some time on it. If we need to talk more after that, we can, but I think he's got some important points he wants to make. Anything else for today? Okay, then we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
That has been a short meeting.